Good. All right, good evening, everybody. At this time, if you're able to rise, please do so for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get going with our business meeting tonight, we have the pleasure to recognize fine arts in our athletic department. So Ms. Talbot's going to read a statement.
Whereas Scotia-Glenville Senior High School is a learning and teaching community committed to excellence, whose mission is to ensure the success of all learners through rigorous, relevant, and challenging explorations and learning experiences, empowering students to find success as they become college and career ready. And whereas the Scotia-Glenville Senior High School 2025 girls varsity tennis team excelled and had an exemplary season by winning the Foothills Council League Championship, winning Class B sectionals by defeating Ichabod Crane 7-0, winning the Division II championship, defeating Voorheesville 5-0, winning New York State regionals, defeating Chenango Forks 5-0, qualified and played in the NYSPHSSA state semifinals in New York City, top 4 team in the state, and whereas each player, Isabella Muraro, Gabriela Amaro, Emma Klimsmet, Lillian Liberatore, Haley Suits, Abigail Taylor, Carolyn Grainer, Madison Reed, Sophia Lipiello, Lila Jones, Rebecca Loveland, Caitlin Sullivan, Angelise Clark, and Taylor Jones, was an integral part of the team and supported the team's success over an individual's success. And whereas the players were encouraged to and assisted by the support of head coach Mr. Jeffrey Olson, assistant coach Mr. Jacob Hardy, manager Lucas Baumgarten, and parents of the players, fellow students and staff, and the Scotia-Glenville community at large. And whereas today, the Scotia-Glenville Board of Education recognizes the varsity girls tennis team for their skills, determination, and commitment to and their support, which led them to competing in the New York State team tournament. And now, therefore, the Board of Education of Scotia-Glenville School District does hereby recognize and congratulate the varsity girls tennis team and their coaches on this 9th day of February 2026. In witness whereof, we have Pareto sets of hands upon proclamation.
So if the coaches and players would like to come up, we have what was just read.
And I do apologize if I mispronounced your name.
That's why I had Kim read it. I don't bite, I promise. Thank you, congratulations.
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 Thank you.
Absolutely, congratulations. Congratulations. Absolutely, thank you. Congratulations. Welcome, congratulations. Thank you, congratulations. Congratulations, thank you. Absolutely. Mr. Olson, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, you do the rest. Appreciate it. Awesome.
Take a picture of it? I think, Ms. Smith, you're going to take the picture for us.
You guys take a picture with your banner facing this way. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
2 more to do, and then after that, we'll have a little reception afterwards. Now, Ms. Furnish.
Congratulations to Kaylee Gutmaker. Kaylee is an 11th grade student on her acceptance onto the prestigious NISMA All-State Band for Oboe. Kaylee is a talented and dedicated musician performing on both oboe and English horn in our symphonic band, singing sopranos and choraleers, participating in the Empire State Youth Symphony Orchestra, and just last night was in a Super Bowl commercial. NISMA All-State represents the highest level of musical excellence for student musicians across New York State. Kaylee's acceptance is a testament to her extraordinary musicianship, dedication, and hard work. She spent months preparing for her audition and earned a perfect score of 100 on her NISMA OBA audition. Out of more than 6,500 sophomores and juniors who auditioned statewide, Kaylee was one of approximately 600 students selected to perform, taking the stage this past December in Rochester, New York. We are incredibly proud of Kaylee and celebrate this remarkable achievement.
This is Juliet Presenti. Senior Juliet Presenti competed at the New York State Swim Meet, finishing as runner-up in the state and in both the 11 free and 50 free, missing out on first by 0.01 seconds. This was her 4th year competing at the state meet, and she finishes her career with 5 second-place finishes, 1 third-place finish, and 2 10th-place finishes. Juliet set the following records: 50 free, Section 2 record All-American, Scotia-Glenville school record, Burn Hills Scotia team record, Burn Hills pool record, Shenandoah pool record, and Voorheesville pool record, 100 free, Burn Hills pool record. Congrats.
Now we'll take a break. There's some refreshments out back to congratulate everybody.
I'm dragging my jacket around.
Dude, did you see Luke's video yet?
What's that?
Did you see Luke's video yet?
No.
You beat the kid that's 38.
Oh, really?
He took first place out there. The kid was 38-1, which now puts, he's going to have to be recognized. Dude, he's 12th in the state.
Is he really, Lucas? Nice.
He beat the 8th-ranked kid.
That's fantastic.
Because he was 38-1 from Ichabod Crane. He beat him at a tournament. And the kid pinned Luke in like a minute and 60 seconds, or minute 45 or something. Luke pinned him in 40 seconds.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's on that YouTube.
I will find it.
But the best part of the whole thing is I had to move out of the way because their coach is my way, so I moved out of the way. And Steve and Josh in the background, and he's on him forever. You're not going to push Luke off. He just has to get it right, balanced, to get the shoulders touching. And as soon as he did, Steve's jumping in the air.
I heard everybody made sectionals.
No, Ryan made it as an 8th grader. Ryan Crew made sectional as an 8th grader. He beat Ryan Crew. I know you'll hear about this. He's on wrestling. He beat 5 seniors weekend to go to sectionals. They were so freaking good. Yeah, an 8th grader is freaking the shit. That's awesome. He was a master. He comes in with that crossface and he's like, he just doesn't have to. They found that he weighs the same as Maximal. He keeps saying Ryan is the strength of Maximal. Because he's more talented. Even Max was more talented. Great competitive.
All right, everybody, if we could continue with the business portion of the meeting. And as we move on tonight, the board would just like to say congratulations to our varsity cheerleading team who keep taking names and kicking butts. They won another competition over this past weekend, as well as our varsity and bowling team just won foothills for the first time, I think, in 31 years, and they finished in 6th place today in sectional. So congratulations to them. And a special thank you to Coach Ritter, who I know was via FaceTime since he unfortunately couldn't be better soon, bud, and back in the coaching ranks. So, all right. So moving on, we are going to adjust the agenda a little bit tonight as we have a couple of presentations. So we're going to move both of our presentations before the first hearing and privilege of the floor, and then as soon as the second one wraps up, we will then have the hearing and privilege of the floor. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Susan. I believe we are with Mr. Giannetti and Mr. Arquette.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Rick Arquette. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Joining me is John Giannetti. He's our Lincoln Principal. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening regarding our elementary schools and the reimagining process. Mr. Giannetti and I have been closely involved from our side of things since the inception of the reimagining committee and meetings. We initially co-chaired the grade level configuration committee in the fall, had a number of really great meetings with a great group of community stakeholders. It then moved on to some reimagining large group meetings, and now we are presenting to you this evening at the Board of Ed meeting. We've received a significant amount of feedback from the community, from staff, from the Board of Ed. Terrific questions, questions that needed answering. And so we thought it best to do our best to present some of the key information from our perspective regarding our elementary schools and the reconfiguration for next school year. Our goals for this presentation are threefold. We do want to take a look at our elementary reconfiguration through the lens of curriculum instruction. That is my department in the district, and primarily look at student outcomes, how we're held accountable as a district and in New York State. We try to group a number of the logistics questions that have come up over the past months and answer those questions in this presentation, and John will take over at that point. Our last goal is to do our best to project what enrollments could look like next year, depending on how we redistrict our students. We looked at enrollment if we completely redistrict all of our students, and then what could it look like if we only redistrict the students from the building that is repurposed or closed. We always try to center our work in our mission statement. It's a nice reminder that we are all here for our children and for the students. We are constantly trying to help our kids meet their full potential, meet their definition of excellence as they go through our schools. I also know change is hard. This has been a very difficult process for all of us. We understand that it does surface strong emotions. We are trying as a group to recognize those emotions, but then hopefully move on and make rational decisions for our district and what's best for our students. Mr. Giannetti and I and the admin team that we've been working with, we do believe change is necessary. The next slide will show why that is. But it can also be an opportunity to rethink what we do, to look at our programming, and to improve what we do. John and I also feel very strongly that the time to act is now. All of this conversation around the reconfiguration of our schools, that uncertainty creates a lot of unease, right, amongst the community, but also amongst our staff, right? And they deserve to know what our plan is moving forward, and we hope that we can come to a swift decision so that we can then come up with next steps. So the why. Why do we need to either close or repurpose an elementary school? It comes down to two primary factors. One is budget. We have been projecting ever since our committee first started meeting in the fall that we are going to face somewhere along the lines of a $2.7 million budget gap for next school year. That is a systemic budget gap, not a one-time budget gap, right, that we need to close. Ms. Swartz and Mr. Giaquinto will certainly speak more to the budget side of things. But we also have had a long-term enrollment decline in our district and in our elementary schools. Based on our enrollment studies from the past decade, our elementaries, the 4 schools, are operating at approximately 60% enrollment capacity. We know that we can eliminate sections in each of our grade levels and still be at or below our elementary grade level guidelines. These are the 2 primary reasons why we're up here this evening and having these difficult conversations. Here's a snapshot of enrollment, just to put some numbers to the concept. The first 3 rows are just some moments in time from the past 25 years. You can see where our elementaries were at in the year 2000, in 2005, and then 2015. The bottom portion of the table shows our enrollment from the past 5 years, but I would like you to try to focus on 2015 and this current school year, 2025. You'll notice that in the last 10 years, our elementary enrollment has dropped by just about 200 students in the past 10 years. If you also look at 2015, if we were to reconfigure and repurpose or close an elementary, the remaining 3 buildings would likely be at or around the enrollment that you see in 2015. We were able to manage it in 2015, we'll be able to manage it in 2026-27. This was a chart that my committee looked at early in the fall. This takes our enrollment from the fall of this school year, and it breaks it down by sections. So you can see how large the class sizes are in each of our elementaries by grade level. These have probably changed a little bit. We pulled this data in October, but the numbers are certainly pretty close. I would ask you to focus on the 2 columns, max and min. You can see the discrepancy between the largest section and the smallest for each grade level. For example, in kindergarten, SAC has a section of 21K students, and Glendale has a section of 12. For grade 5, all the way at the bottom, Lincoln has a single section of 26, and Glendale has a section of 12. You'll also notice that for Max, all of the classes that are the largest in the district are either housed at Sacandaga or Lincoln, and the smallest sections are at Glenborden or Glendale. This is something that my committee identified as critical and something that needs to be remedied for next school year. To compare elementaries, you need to have class sizes that are equitable, and that is currently not the case. And later in the presentation, Mr. Giannetti will speak to try to level out these sections. It is difficult looking at and comparing elementaries in terms of their academics and their outcomes. Why is that? As we have all seen throughout our meeting process, each elementary is kind of its own ecosystem. They're all slightly different. Lots of similarities and consistencies. We're all Tartans, but each elementary certainly has its own flavor. The demographics are different by our elementaries. I'll get to that in just a moment. We have different programs in different buildings. Co-teach at Lincoln looks different than co-teach at Sacandaga, right? The buildings have different program. Our elementaries are fairly small. Our grade levels can be quite small depending on the elementary, and because of that, slight variations in how many kids take a test or don't take a test can really impact what the outcomes look like for a building, so something important to consider. And also staff. We have varied levels of experience among our staff by elementary. We have certainly different student-to-teacher ratios by elementary as well. This makes it a challenge to look at the academic outcomes comparing one school to another. Some of the demographics, the critical demographic information. The top table is our percentage of economically disadvantaged students for the past 4 years, and the end column is the average. And so you can see there is some variation between all of our elementaries. Lincoln has the highest economically disadvantaged population of 44% on average. Glendale, the lowest at 25%. Students with disability, those numbers are slightly closer to a mean between the 4 buildings, but they do vary. Lincoln also has the largest percentage of students with disabilities because of their co-teach model. The smallest is actually currently at Sacandaga. And we also know, for those of us who have been attending all of these meetings, the program varies widely by building. Each building has pretty distinct special ed programming. So in terms of our elementaries, probably the best way to take a look at their academic performance is to look at the way that we're held accountable with the state education department. That is, it's a federal mandate called Every Student Succeed Act. The state has to have an ESSA plan and hold districts accountable to our ESSA data. And so it's a way for us to compare how we're doing to the state, which is important, right? Our kids are going to leave Scotia at some point. We have to make sure that they're competitive when they leave our district. But it's also a way to look at our elementaries and see how they're faring. For each of the columns, there's a ranking system applied, 1 through 4, kind of like your college GPA. 4 is the highest ranking that you can receive, 1 would be the lowest. Weighted, core, and growth, those are all tied to our students' 3 through 8 ELA, math, and science scores. They're calculated by the state, and we get a ranking. The weighted average achievement column, that's impacted by refusals. So if you have a lot of refusals in a building, it's going to hurt your weighted rank. Core academic performance is just how your students do on the 3 through 8 exams. Refusals don't impact that. Growth was around before COVID as an accountability metric. It was removed during COVID and was just reintroduced this year. It basically is trying to compare how kids do from year to year. How have they grown compared to their peers that received similar scores the year prior? So this is a new metric this school year. Attendance this year, attendance has been around since the inception of ESSA, but they've changed how it's measured. Every kid gets a attendance score based on their percentage of attendance in their building, and then the school gets a rank based on how all the students do with their attendance over the course of the school year. Years ago, it used to just be your chronic absenteeism percentage, and it's been changed this year. So if you look at the 4 elementary buildings, my first takeaway is this is a positive outcome for all of our buildings. This is good, right? A 3 is above the state average. A 4 is a top rank for the state, typically within the top 25% of elementary and middle schools in the state in order to receive it. Glen Warden had a 3 for both their weighted and their core. Their growth seems a little low at 2, but once again, it's the first time this metric's been introduced. I'd like to see multiple years of this to try to get a real sense for it, and an attendance level of 4. Glendale has been consistent. They have been at 4s for the previous 3 years, I believe. Lincoln has shown tremendous growth over the past couple of years with their 3 through 8 and their attendance. For both weighted and core, they were scored a 4. Their growth was a 3, and I'm sure Mr. Giannetti could explain why it was a 3. I think it's because their kids did so well last year that this year they didn't grow quite as much because they had excelled so much the year before. That's what Mr. Giannetti says, but I believe him. And I know Lincoln's very proud of their attendance. It was an issue a couple years ago, and they have completely turned around their attendance rate, and they're also a 4 for attendance. Sacandaga, also strong, right? They're a 3 for weighted and core. Their kids showed a tremendous amount of growth last year, which is awesome to see. They received a 4, and I am very proud of the fact that all 4 of our elementaries have a 4 for attendance. That's certainly a feather in the cap for all of our staff, all of our families, and our administrators. So this is a snapshot of our ESSA data from last school year, 2024-25. It was under embargo. It was just made public over the past month. The 2 most important metrics, in my opinion, are core subject performance. That's how your test takers do on the 3 through 8s, which I'll be the first to admit, the 3 through 8 exam is not a perfect exam, but it is what we use, it's what we're held accountable by, and our attendance rate. You'll notice that Glen Warden has been consistently at a 3 for their core subject performance. As I mentioned before, Glendale has consistently been a 4. It's great to see the growth at Lincoln. They were a strong 3, and now they're a 4. And Sacandaga was a 2 and has moved up to a 3 this school year. So they are also making great progress for their building. And attendance for all of the buildings has been really strong. And I mentioned before, it was certainly a priority for Mr. Giannetti and the Lincoln staff a couple years ago. And the interventions that they put in place have really seemed to work. And now that they're at the same level as the rest of our elementary buildings. There's an asterisk next to the 24-25 for attendance just because, like I mentioned, it's a new calculation where every kid's attendance counts, and it's not just the chronically absent students that impact the score. So this provides a fairly good and positive picture of our 4 elementaries over the past 3 school years. So in terms of how our schools are doing, in my opinion, While we can always do better, we're always striving to be better. All 4 of our elementaries are above the state average for proficiency rates on the 3 through 8 exams, and they're above the Capital Region BOCES average. Our buildings are outperforming Cap Region BOCES in terms of our 3 through 8 scores. Why is this? Well, we have an awesome community. We have great staff, we have awesome teachers, and we have great leaders. It is challenging to compare schools because of how different each of our buildings are. Key observations: we need to balance our class sizes. It may be the most important outcome of this first half of the presentation. It's really hard to compare 2 classrooms if there's a 10-student difference between the 2 rooms. Lincoln has had incredible success with their co-teach model. Are there lessons to be learned from that co-teach model, and can they be applied to other buildings and other scenarios? It's a true success story. And finally, we all probably know this. It is hugely important as we go through this transition as a district that we try to maintain as much staff continuity as we can. There's going to be a lot of disruption to our students, so how can we ensure that our staff are supported, they understand what's going on, and that we keep our staffing consistent amongst each of the remaining 3 buildings to the extent possible. That leads to Mr. Giannetti's portion of the presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Giannetti, and I am going to talk a little bit about the logistics of the different scenarios. And just to give you a background, at one point or another, I have built the master schedule in 4 of our 6 buildings. So I have the knowledge and the experience to kind of put the jigsaw puzzle together. And when we were asked to come up with different scenarios about closing a building, that's what it is. It's a major jigsaw puzzle. The information that I'm going to provide is not the end-all be-all, but it is our best guess. It is our best strategy to provide the least impact on our entire community, and we certainly want it to be the most educationally sound advice. So I'm going to walk through some of the information that we've seen before, but when we were talked about what's the difference between closing one building versus another, I'm just going to walk through some of the scenarios. This slide here shows the savings, and when we were working with our RoS committee, we felt by closing a building, we could, okay, so we're right in here, that's the staff reduction that we could come up with without impacting the students' academic support that they need. That savings total is about $1.5 million. You will notice it doesn't matter which building we close, that will stay the same. And the reason why it stays the same is because the staff, the actual person that is being reduced, is not a choice from an administrator. There's a seniority list that we must follow. So it does not matter which building is closing. That will stay the same. The utility savings, and that came from our business office, that does change based on which building closes. If you close Lincoln, you would save $35,000, $598. If you close Glen Warden, then it's $39,523. If you close Glendale, it's $69,794. So that savings does vary based on which building you choose to close. And the transportation costs vary. And this is the expected increased cost by closing a building and the extra transportation routes that would be needed. This number reflects what's aidable. And again, if Lincoln closes, it's going to cost the district $19,334 each year. If Glen Warden closes, $6,169, and Glendale, $9,639. So below that, that's just your net savings based on which building, plus the $1.5 million, and that is the real big number there. Other factors that have been discussed, and which we tried to get some answers for, the conversation about the need, if Glen Warden closes, about putting a fence in for the safety of our students in the program, and that was the estimated $60,000, and it aided through a capital project. But then there was a lot of scenarios as far as transportation times. So we tried to do the best we can to study the bus runs across the district and what impact each scenario would have on the actual bus runs. Right now, our current bus runs, our longest bus run exists in the Glendale zone, and it is a 90-minute AM run, 95-minute PM run, but it's the same route. So what would the impact of closing Lincoln have on our district runs? Lincoln's longest bus run would increase, but the increase would be to 68 minutes and 88 minutes, AM, PM. So if you close Lincoln, yes, Lincoln students will have a longer bus run, but I put the comparison there. It will not be what currently our students at Glendale are facing. If Lincoln closes, there would need to be 6 runs added, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and that's to transport the 100-plus students that are walking to school who are not eligible for transportation. If Glen Warden closes, again, Glendale's bus runs will still stay the same. That long run will not change. However, Glen Warden's longest run will increase, and that would be 89 minutes and 93 minutes. Again, AM, PM runs are slightly different based on the number of stops. If Glendale closes, Glendale's run, this 90 to 95 minutes, would be increased by, their run would now be 99 minutes long and 104 minutes long. And as well as they would have to increase an additional run in the AM and PM. So 2 runs would have to be implemented there if Glendale was to close. And that information, except for the amount of minutes that we calculated this week, was presented in a previous presentation. The other impacts, and this is where the scheduling kind of expertise comes in. This slide represents the academic and staffing transitions that need to be considered, and we heard a lot about this from our community, the concerns. For those, just our program considerations, which is very important. As you have heard, Lincoln has a co-teaching program that, although 100% of our students are involved in co-teaching, 37 students have an IEP, and they are required to be in co-teaching due to their IEP. The DS programs at Glen Warden, they have 13 students, and again, these numbers right here, just so everyone understands, those are the current kindergarten through 4th grade numbers, so these are the kids that are going to be impacted next year. But the DS program, a program that we need to consider as well, they have 13 students, and the 1511 program at Glendale, they have 18 students, and there's a little note there that it should be with co-teaching. That is something we discussed at our original RoS meeting. The reason that program should be housed in the same building as co-teaching, because those students really transition between those programs quite frequently. We've had students that have had to come mid-year from the 1511 program to the co-teaching program, and we've had students from co-teaching that were recommended to go to the 1511 program. I've been saying this long before the school closure conversation. I've been saying it since we started the program. That really does give those students in both the co-teaching and the 1511 program the best opportunity to have the most programming in the least restrictive environment. So that is why that is there. The staffing considerations, the continuity of our staffing, I would say the staff is the foundation of your school, right? So what is the impact if each of the building closes? Again, we do not get to choose which teachers, based on personality. It's based on a seniority list of who stays. And if Lincoln closes, you can see that 11 of the Lincoln classroom teachers would move to Glendale, and they would move to Glendale because we would be moving the co-teaching program to Glendale. And the reason why we would move it to Glendale is because the 15-1 program currently sits there, right? So that would keep the DS program at Glen Warden. It would be the least disruptive. If we had to close Lincoln, that would be the least disruptive solution. But to do so, we would move the entire Lincoln classroom teachers that have been involved in co-teaching for, I think our newest classroom teacher has been 10 years, but many of the teachers have been co-teaching long before I got there, I think 16, 17 years. So the domino effect then would be if co-teaching now sits at Glendale, the 5 Glendale teachers would have to go to Glen Warden, and then 5 Glendale teachers would have to go to SAC. If you notice in all 3 scenarios, Sacandaga will need 5 new teachers next year. And the reason behind that is because we are adding 3 sections to Sacandaga next year. Okay, so we are adding the 3rd section in all the grades. And then because of seniority, we know that there's going to be at least 2 additional staff that will have to go to Sacandaga next year. But Sacandaga will maintain at least 18 of their current current teachers in their building next year. The other domino effect, again at Lincoln, if Lincoln closes, the principal at Glen Warden would be new next year, and the principal at Glendale would be new as well. And again, that is just, does that have to be that way? No. Would it make sense to put the principal who's been working in the co-teaching building for 15 years with the co-teaching staff? I think that makes the most academic sense, but it's, if the board said no, we could throw the puzzle up in the air and see where it lands. So that's the impact of closing Lincoln. The impact, the staff changes at Glen Warden. You notice we put on there that they do have the least senior teachers. There will be 5 new teachers at Glen Warden next year. They also have the least senior principal and the least senior secretary. If Glen Warden was to close, 1 teacher from Glen Warden would move to Glendale. 1 teacher at Glen Warden would move to Lincoln, and then 5 teachers at Glen Warden would move to SAC. Again, there's flexibility, but if we're looking at the least impact and the least changing for the staffing, I think we figured out a scenario that pretty much all but 2 teachers could still teach the same grade, so they're not switching grade levels. And that switch would be from their consecutive grade. So for example, if you were a 2nd grade teacher, you might have to teach 3rd, or if you were a 4th grade teacher, you might have to teach 5th, but we're not going to make a kindergarten teacher go teach 5th grade. Again, that's not an absolute, but if you're asking what makes the most academic sense and the least impact on staff, that would be my suggestion there. If we were to close Glendale, again, the impacts would be 5 Glendale teachers would have to go to Glen Warden. And again, that's based on seniority, that 5 Glen Warden teachers will not be there next year. One Glendale teacher would have to go to Lincoln, and 5 Glendale teachers would have to go to SAC. If Glendale closed, again, the principal at Glen Warden would be new, and that's based on seniority. The big question last week was around redistricting. So this slide really is, okay, so we're going to close a school. And again, these numbers right here are the existing kindergarten through fourth graders. Those are the kids that are going to be impacted by closing a building. But the question was raised, what are we going to do? What would the redistricting look like? So there are really, in my opinion, two solutions or two options. Option one, we can just redistrict the closed school and adjust the attendance zones. Option two, we can redistrict all the buildings and create all new attendance zones. You can see right there in yellow what the impact would be on the number of students, because we ran these scenarios and we actually ran them based on the map from that attendance committee that had all those dots on there. I requested a list of every single one of the names and the addresses in the current school of all those dots, and I put them on a spreadsheet to kind of sort through them to see how many kids had to switch schools next year between the two options. Option one, the numbers between 161 and 86. What determines that? Those numbers right there. So if Glen Ward or if Lincoln closes, 166 kids are going to switch buildings. If Glen Warden closes, it's 161, and if Glendale, it's 186. So that's where those three, or that's where that range came from. In option two, you can see we have students shuffling all over the place. In this scenario, again, we took the actual names from the transportation department who would be sitting in that zone, and I calculated that between 322 and 459 students would have to move schools next year if we went to option two. These are the zones that the attendance committee and the transportation provided me, and again, those are the dots that I pulled we got the names from. I do want to point out, if you look at these numbers here, the numbers that the transportation committee looked at, they include our existing fifth graders. I did not include them because they are going to the middle school, so if you see a discrepancy in the numbers, that's where the discrepancy is. But if we were to close Lincoln, that's what your map would look like, and I know the community was asking for that. You know, what would the zone look like? If we were to close Glen Warden, this is your zone right here. And then finally, if we were to close Glendale, this is what your zone would look like. I will point out, even though the numbers are not the same, or that's on here, if you notice right now in this scenario, because again, transportation was looking at just solely from the lens of the community and what's easier for bus routes, not actually how many third graders or fourth graders were actually laying their head in that zone. But even with the current enrollment, they have Scotia-Glenville with fewer students than Glendale, or excuse me, than Glen Warden and Lincoln. I have more numbers later on with the K through 4 that will show the similar trend. So these are the total number of students in each building. I did estimate the number of kindergarten students, 2 sections at Glendale, 2 sections at Glen Warden, 2 sections at Lincoln, and then 3 at Scotia-Glenville. But again, these numbers right here are very similar to the 2015 enrollment numbers that Rick had referred to at the beginning of the presentation. But if Lincoln was to close, you can see that we have a very balanced number between the two buildings. and Sacandaga would have more. That is reflected in the third section of each grade level that they can house at Sacandaga. And I also want to note that this scenario is based on if we just redistrict a closed building and then start the new zones with the new incoming kindergarten families. So we then have control over it and we can balance things along the way. And that was something that I had mentioned if you're on the transportation committee, when the transportation committee and the grade level center committees met together, that was the one thing that I raised a flag right away to say restricting in year one could become problematic. The scenario below is, again, if we create all new attendance zones, and these are where the numbers actually, again, reflect. If Lincoln was to close, Glen Warden would have 259 students, Glendale would have 296 students, so a discrepancy of 40 students. Sacandaga would be at 354. If Glen Warden closed, Lincoln would have 292 students, Glendale would have 275, and Sacandaga would have 342. And then finally, if Glendale closed, Lincoln would have 318, and Warden would have 272, and Sacandaga would have 319. Again, taking out the kindergarten numbers or estimates, every other single number in there actually has a name attached to a list when I ran the scenario. So that is truly where they live and which building that they would go to. This slide here, what does the overall numbers, what would they have, what impact would they have on the sections? Again, a priority that the RoS, or the Grade Level Center Configuration Committee, looked at to try to fix. Over here we have our district guidelines. If we strategically redistricted the students from the closed building versus redistricting the entire school district. You can see right here, between our smallest section and largest section, we have control over this. They would all be within one student of each other. So every single section would be within one student, and they would all be under the guideline. This is where we felt like we could consolidate negatively impact students' academics, because we can stay within that guideline. If we redistrict and just stuck with the redistricting in year one, you could see we now run into a very similar situation that we've seen and which we are seeing right now. First grade, our smallest section would be 17, and in another building it'd be 24. So there's a discrepancy there. First and second grade, not much of a deal going over the guideline if you wanted to follow the guideline. In third grade, 31 students in their sections in one building, and in another building you would have sections of. In fourth grade it'd be 27 and 14. Fifth grade it'd be 28 and 20. What happened here is, again, transportation drew the lines, and they literally flip-flop the problem. I can tell you in the scenarios that the class sizes of 14 in these scenarios is at Sacandaga. And I know Sacandaga would love to have class sizes of 14. They have been the ones that have been class sizes of 26. The class 7 and 31, that would be at Lincoln and Glendale. 28 would be at Glendale. So those are actual names that when we ran those scenarios. So it's not a what if, that is what would happen. Now, I am sure, as I would as a principal and the teachers would advocate for this, we're not going to go over a cap. So what would be our solution? Our solution would be we would have to reshuffle these kids out of their new zone. okay? So comparing the two options that we have, these are the questions that we can ask ourselves. Are the sections balanced across the district? In this option, yes. In redistricting the entire district in year one, no. And we would have to, again, move students from their new zone to balanced sections. Will section sizes stay within the grade level guidelines? In this option, yes. The redistrict the entire district, no. From my role as a principal, again, we look at what each class, what each grade level, what each building needs, and we try to allocate the support that we do have available to match the needs of our students. Can we predict the staffing and support that is needed in each of our buildings if we close a building? If we do a strategic redistricting of the closed building, yes, we can. And I believe, and I've said this before, but these numbers are not reflected, we can find other staffing efficiencies. And the example that I use is, if there is a student at Glenwarden who requires an aide, and that student has to move, and that student is in third grade, and that student has to move either to Glendale or to Glenwarden, and there's another student in third grade who also needs an aide, we can consolidate. Sometimes you can't. In reading, if there's a student who requires, a fourth grader who requires Wilson, and there's only one student in that building, and that student has to get moved, and we can, with all other considerations, if we can move that student where they can be paired up with the other fourth grade student who's at the same level, we can then start making our support more efficient and provide better opportunities for our kids, and possibly find some more savings. If we go with option 2 of redistricting the whole district, no, we cannot accurately predict, because there are so many more students, almost double the amount of students. Yes, you can go through one by one, but this note that I have here, by just using the map to draw our lines, it drastically changes the demographics of the building. And I will give you one example. This scenario is when Lincoln stays open, and Lincoln right now currently has the highest percentage of students that is economically disadvantaged, and they are supported by the model. There's support at Lincoln to meet their needs. When I pulled the names of students that would be rezoned, out of the 59 Lincoln students that would have been rezoned to Sacandaga, 36 of them were economically disadvantaged. So right there, that alone would increase Sacandaga's economically disadvantaged rate by 10%. It's almost 10% of their population. So we would have to reconfigure all the staff that we have at Lincoln to provide the support for those kids, whether they're into co-teaching or whether they have an IEP or not, they are receiving the support. So now we have to figure out, how are we going to support those kids? Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. But it is change in year one. That is a drastic change to the demographics of a building. And again, it is all controlled by a map, not educators who are looking at each and every single kid and where we can best program for them and be the most efficient. So those are the different factors to consider when we explore those options. Right? I know I threw a lot at folks, but I am happy to answer any of the board's questions that you may have in regards to the logistics. Why did we choose this versus that? Why did you assume this or that? I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. Go.
The kindergarten isn't going to have a defined zone for the next couple years. If we can't do it geographically, for people who have kids that live in a certain neighborhood, that kids go to school X, school Y, school Z.
Yep.
How are we gonna do that so that we don't end up in the same problem in 5 years?
So if you notice, I was very deliberate on how I worded that title. It was the new incoming kindergarten families, because, right, when possible, we want to keep our families together. That's a priority. But yes, we need to expand our swing zones. That is really the solution. There is, we need to be more flexible when we enroll our kindergarten students. We can't be such, hard line to say, nope, this is where they live. So we're going to load this class up with 22, and this class is going to have 16. Because you're right, the problem will come back if we do it that way. But if we are more flexible with our swing zones, then yes, we have more control over it. And I think Rick said this a couple of presentations ago, that if we start off balanced, then we stand a better chance to remain balanced once they're in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. But yes, the careful consideration needs to be made there.
Can you be in charge of putting the kids in the right schools?
Well, I will tell you that all the administrators, we do kind of communicate back and forth. In the past, it's always been because a section has been closed. So we are used to that communication, and as a group, we will take care of that.
That was a little tongue-in-cheek, but yes, John.
Yeah.
First off, I want to say thank you. That was a great amount of information, and we had received some of it earlier, and I went through and I had a lot of questions, and you've anticipated most of them, so thank you for that. Yeah. I did have a couple. One with the page with the utilities. To me, that looks like it was the full amount, correct? Like the 69,000 and the 39. And I think Drew may want to, if you answer, we'd still probably have to pay about half of that, right? In order, because we'd still have the building.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure I was correct on that, Drew. Yeah. He's nodding, just
okay.
In case you didn't see him. My question for you, however, with respect to the redistricting completely versus strategically choosing for one school. And I'm just trying to understand, I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. Why can't we strategically figure the entire redistricting like you're strategically figuring the one school? Why doesn't that work? If you can go to that page.
So you can, but if we're looking at the numbers right here, okay.
It still would affect that amount of students.
So we're right. So understanding what your resources, for example, as a building, and I'm just going to use this as the example. If I know I have 60 students coming in, right, and what grade level they're at, I know what my existing population is, and I know where my resources may be stretched, or where I might say, no, you want to know something? We're going to need additional support for these 10 students who need RTI in 1st grade or 2nd grade. That is much easier to control versus the fact that if I have 90 students coming in and 59 of my students leaving, right? So that's what's happening, is some of our students are leaving, the other students are coming in. So we know fewer of our students, but yeah, could we go through all 322 or 459 students line by line to say we could have our best guess? But yeah.
So you're anticipating then for the kindergartners, we'd be creating these new zones that we were talking about. So then the following year would be for the kindergartners and the 1st graders, et cetera, as we move along. So then 5-6 years from now, hopefully we're in a better space, rezoning completely.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I'll give you what I would imagine that would happen or predict that would happen. So on the bottom here, let's see, where's my, sorry, I'm taking a long time. So the demographics changing. When I looked purely based on the names that we were given, it flip-flopped our co-teaching numbers. So now all of a sudden Scotia-Glenville had our co-teaching kids and we had their co-teaching kids. As we have our kindergarten population coming in and we're putting them in and we find that there's more co-teachers at Scotia-Glenville naturally because of where they're housed, then we simply make that kindergarten full co-teaching like would it exist at Lincoln right now. So that staffing could be phased in and out accordingly. But yes, I would say hopefully by the 5th year or whatever that you have those zones, but you also have the staff within each of those buildings to house the demographic changes that could occur.
Thank you. That's all I had. You answered everything
Okay.
else. Thank you.
John, I have a question.
Yeah.
On the factors to consider, talking about Glendale's longest run would now be 99 and 104 minutes. You would need the 2 additional runs to hit those run times?
Those additional 2 runs was based off the transportation's presentation. I just stole that from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably a Drew question. Do we happen to know what those extra runs would cost?
Are there extra runs or there's a cost extra runs?
But it said it would need 2 additional runs. I don't mean to put you on the spot on that.
Depends how long the runs are. Drivers about $30 an hour, so depending on how long the runs are, there would be a cost.
Okay.
But you would get 74 cents and $1 back the next year.
Right on. Thank you.
Well,
Thanks, John.
Yep. You're welcome.
This is a Drew question for the fence. Do we have a timeline? I know this is a hot topic with the fence, but do we think we're done before the opening of the school year? If we go that route towards, let's just say Glen Warden, right? We got our fence on either Lincoln or Glendale. Do we have a timeline, or do we think our fence will be up and, there in September?
that's will be up before school starts. If the decision's made during the summer, we'll get it done. And as far as transportation, we'll have the runs all set like we always do by August. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So guys, thank you very much for the committee work that you're doing and plus the presentation tonight. I guess I'll ask you the hard question, and if you don't want to answer it, I respect that. Because we respect what you guys talk about, your presentations, all the work that you've done. If the board was to ask you gentlemen for your recommendation as to which school you may pick, do you have an answer? And again, if you don't, I respect that. I'm asking you a hard question, I know.
I do. And as I have told my own PTA parents, and they've heard this, that if I felt that closing Lincoln was the best for our district, I would be the one saying that. I live in the Glen Warden zone. They're my neighbors. But if you're asking me my opinion, it comes down to this slide right here, which again, our students, they are the pretty part of the house, right? Our staff, they are the foundation. They are the foundation. And we are going to put more students in our house. We want to make sure, right, and the concerns about students moving and transitioning and the impact, they're all valid, and it doesn't matter which school closes. That's going to happen. But the stronger our foundation is, the better we are going to be equipped to handle it. The least transition is for staffing, is if you close Glen Warden. I believe Susan's recommendation was the correct one. With all the things being considered, if someone said, hey, you're going to save $1 million difference by closing this building versus that, but to have an entire new staff in 2 buildings because the least senior teachers are sitting in Glen Warden. And if for one teacher to join Glendale and the other teacher to join Lincoln, all the new students are going to be with teachers and staff that are used to that. Sacandaga, yes, they're going to have 5 new teachers, but again, the majority of them, the 13 of the teachers are going to remain consistent. I think that, again, that's a strong foundation. So we can handle the extra kids. We can handle the transitions. We can handle how to comfort the kids and the families and welcome them into the school. That's yeah. So I know that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would agree with John. I think when you combine Susan's presentation with ours, it does make the most sense that it be Glen Warden. Academically, I think all of our buildings have great momentum, positive momentum. It really does come down to staff. From my perspective, maintaining as much continuity as possible is critical, and closing Glen Warden provides us the most continuity among the remaining 3 buildings.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Kimmy, do you have any questions?
No, please just answer them.
Okay. If there's nothing else, thank you guys. We appreciate it. So folks, we can move right on to our next presentation. If anybody needs a bit of water or bathroom or anything? No? No? Okay, we move right on.
And again, thank you to my colleagues. So this presentation sadly focuses on numbers, so it won't be quite as interesting for some folks as the one we just heard. So tonight we're going to give you our budget to budget presentation. We had sheets out that I hope people were able to pick up that define some of the common terms we use in when we're talking about the budget. Education speak, so that should be helpful. I decided to start tonight with our Scotia-Glenville commitment statement. You might recall we adopted this as part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. This evening, we're going to review the district's strategic and annual goals, what we have this year. We're going to develop an understanding of the carry-forward budget, an understanding of the tax levy cap for 26-27, and talk about the budget development strategy. I'm going to go pretty quickly through my next few slides. Both the presentation that John and Rick did and this presentation will be up on our website tomorrow morning. So we have 4 strategic goals: instruction, personnel, operations, and facilities. And then within each of those goals, we have annual goals. So we have instruction goals. I'm pleased to say we, although we keep this one here, achieve a 90% or greater high school graduation rate. We did that with the class of 2025, so we're pretty excited about that and want to maintain that. And we have a number of other things that we're working on, some of which you've heard presentations about. So those are our academic goals. We also have our whole child goals. So those include things like our new social emotional learning curriculum, which is being delivered in all of our K-5 classrooms. increasing parent square communication from our schools and departments. So again, things that we've been working on. Our personnel goals, we have a very strong staff and we want to keep it that way. So the things that we do to, one, because we're required, such as all those trainings you see listed, but also that we do, one of the things Mr. Arquette has added since he has been here is a wellness piece to our superintendent's conference days. So things that we're trying to do to engage our staff and keep them healthy and happy too. Our operation goals, we talk about this a lot. You'll see this in our health and safety minutes. If you look at our website and review those minutes. And then our facilities goals. And we're talking here about the capital project that's in progress right now. And then these are the questions I am always thinking about. What do we want for students? How do we best achieve that? How will we know we have been successful? And what will we do if we are not? That truly is the framework around which we think and we make decisions. Certainly, I know John considered those things, considered them as they were thinking about what they were going to present tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Giaquinto.
Good evening, everybody, Board of Education. Just some basic school budget terminology. Some of these items are hit during the budget newsletters. We define them, and I'll talk about them in various presentations, but the annual budget vote is when the public comes out the third Tuesday in May and votes on what the Board of Education has put forward. Depending on whether it's at or under the cap, it'll require 50%. If it's at or under the tax cap, if it's above the tax cap, it requires 60%. The appropriation, that is established by the adoption of the budget. That's what the board has authorized the school district to spend, and the public approves that limit. An expenditure is the money spent by the district on items like salaries, equipment, or services. The general fund is what the public is voting on. We have more than the general fund. We have the special aid fund, which is the federal money. We have the capital fund, which is the H fund. The general fund is the A fund. That's the larger fund. That's about $70 million. Revenue is our income, which is generated from primarily state aid, the property tax, and some federal subsidies, which is in the Medicaid and Medicare D areas. Pilots are payment in lieu of taxes. That's where the Metroplex typically makes an arrangement with businesses to arrange a deal which is less than if they're on the tax rolls. Typically they're 10 years and they receive a 50% reduction in their assessed value, and then every year it goes up 5% until their full value after the 10th year, and they move to the tax rolls. So we have quite a bit of those, about 30 of those I think about now. Pilots, when they increase from the prior year, decrease the amount you can operate under the tax cap. If your pilots go down in the current budget year compared to the prior year, you get more room under the tax cap. That's just the state formula there. STAR, which is school tax relief, that's a reduction of your school property taxes. Some people get a reduction of their assessed value on their tax bill. Some get a check or the STAR rebate, depending if they're how they've applied for that with the assessor. And then the tax cap is the amount that the state formula says that we can raise and require only a 50% voter approval. The gap to the cap phrase is just a phrase to show the board and the public what the state formula allows us to raise at a 50% to what the budget requires us to balance it. So you'll see that in an ensuing slide, what the first draft of the budget shows we need to raise in taxes to balance the budget compared to what the state formula allows us to raise taxes. Tax certiorari's are legal proceedings that commercial property owners can file judgment against the local assessor that they've been over or under-assessed, usually under-assessed, over-assessed, and they want a refund and a reduction in their assessed value. You'll hear from time to time board action that we've had a judgment that's been settled, and we either refund money or there is no refund, depending on what the judgment was settled on. And the tax levy is the amount of money a school district collects from the local property taxes to support its budget. Compared to the tax rate, which is the amount that you pay per $1,000 of your assessed property value. And it takes the total tax levy and divides it by the total assessed value of the property in the district. Two different things. The tax rate you don't vote on, but that's your tax bill. The tax levy you do vote on. Appropriated fund balance, that's the fund balance that we use. In other words, it's our savings from the prior year that we use to balance the budget in lieu of raising taxes. Typically, the district's using about 6% of their budget is balanced by the appropriated fund balance. Every year you have to make up that amount, or you have what they call a donut or a hole in the budget. You'll see me take you through that in ensuing slides also. The fund balance, think of that as your savings account. Private sector call it their owner's equity account. School districts are required to call it fund balance. And that's the leftover money that we're allowed to keep when we underspend the budget. Reserved or restricted fund balance, those are your reserves you saw last board meeting, and you see them from time to time in my fiscal analysis. This is money where we set aside for certain purposes like retirements, repair reserves, pension escalations. They're all defined by state education law. They're all approved by the Board of Education. The board sets the reserve policy. And then the unappropriated fund balance is where we're allowed to keep 4% of our savings in relationship to the current year's budget. Right now we're at 1.7%. We've been at 4% in prior years, but we cut it in half last year as we had a good fiscal year, but not as good as the prior years. So those are some of the key terms that you'll hear me say or present during the budget process. So what is a carry forward budget? This budget is basically taking every program that we have currently in the district and rolling it forward at the known or estimated cost increases. So no programs are cut, no staffing is cut, no building is closed. It's taking everything we have now and costing out what it takes to run those programs in the next year. So you'll see some of the bullets here. The athletic department, we met with the athletic director. She did a really nice job and came up with a plan to get our uniforms all up to the standard that they should be at, and got all our equipment needs assessed. And so that number isn't the same as last year. It went up. You'll see that in the ensuing slide. But again, it's just taking what we need to run our programs next year. The carry forward revenue takes the governor's state aid budget. We'll not have a final number until New York State passes their budget. They're supposed to pass it by April 1. The last couple of years they've been late. So right now we use the governor's aid budget. Interest income, we project that out based on what we think the rates will be next year. We had 3 rate decreases this year. We expect 3 more next year. Payment in lieu of taxes, that's your pilots. We have those all scheduled out, so they're in the budget at the proper amount. Government subsidies, that's Medicaid and Medicare D subsidies. We estimate those based on current claim years and current subsidies being received. And then I'll show you the appropriated fund balance and reserve utilization that are in the first draft. And you also see, to support this carry forward budget, we're going to have to exceed the tax cap, just similar to last year at this time. So the first draft requires almost $70 million in expenditures, a 4.9% increase, almost $3.3 million. So that's the amount that we call the appropriation. That's what we need to spend next year to maintain current programs, keep all the schools open, and so forth. State aid, it's only a 1.8% increase. We are fully funded under the foundation aid formula over the last 3 or 4 years. We get a hold harmless in there, and also some expense-driven aids like building aid have gone up, but really it's almost flat. So you can see that 1.8% is short of the 4.9, and that's about 38% of our budget to state aid. The pilots are going up $142,000 or 15%. As the board saw in the second fiscal projection, we're about $728,000 short on the fund balance to get back to the appropriated fund balance of the prior year. So that's something that would be a shortfall. And interest income, which is budgeted at $525,000 in the current year, will probably drop by $125,000 with projected 3 rate decreases next year. So the revenue is only going to go up $512,238, or less than 1%. We need to cover 3.257023. That's the gap to the cap. A, which is the expenses, minus B, which is the revenue we're going to increase by, equals C, which is the budget gap to the tax cap. So almost 2.8 million. So 2,744,785. Pretty close to the 2.7 I projected last May, and I've been projecting in that range through 2 fiscal projections this year, and about where we were last year, the first draft of the budget. Projected fund balance, or your savings account, we started July 1st, 25 at $1,137,873, or 1.7%. We're allowed 4%, or $2.6,665,47. So we weren't where we usually were. We're always close to that 4% in prior years. But last year we had a couple significant expenditures and special needs in prescription drugs that reduced our surplus. So we're projecting this year $2,469,672. $191,799 of that went to the debt service reserve, which we'll pull out to help pay off bond anticipation note payments going forward. So the projected fund balance at the end of this June is $3,415,746. Projecting to use $215,000 of reserves. That would leave us about $727,812 short of what we used last year on appropriated fund balance. So that becomes a gap, contributes to the gap. These are how the expenses are moving. You can see that our biggest expense is instructional, and that's increasing 3.9%, which is below the 4.9 overall expense increase to the budget. Employee benefits are going up 7.3%. But you can see overall, billing rounds is going up 7.13%. We'll talk about that in ensuing slides due to restructuring. Again, these are just the costs to go forward. This is not what the final budget. It's just the first look moving forward. So 4.9% increase. You can see that most of the components are in the same percent of the overall budget as the prior year. The revenue, property taxes are our biggest. We would need $38 million of property taxes to balance this budget, compared to $34,492 a year ago. That's a 10% increase, and it composes 54% of our budget. State aid, which composes 37%, is only going up 1.8%. So there's almost 92% of your funding comes in 2 places: property taxes and state aid. Appropriated fund balance, which again is just taxpayer money we've saved, that represents 4.9% of the budget. A year ago it was 6.23% of the budget. We don't have as much fund balance this year. And then you have the pilots, which we went over, payment in lieu of taxes. They're almost $1.1 million now. And you can see again interest income, as I alluded to, dropping about $125,000 as the rates are projected by people we talked to in the banking industry to fall 3 times more next year. So overall, basically 3.257023 is the expenses we're going to go up, and you need to balance the budget. So to do that, we'd have to raise taxes 10%. Again, this kind of follows the synergy of a year ago, the first draft, when we were about 2.9 in the hole. Where are the spending increases being derived from? Health and dental, 11%. Last year it was going up 13 or 14, so it did stabilize a little bit, but it's still a very volatile area in the nation, in the state, and locally. It's still a big part of our budget, and it's going up the most. Salary and wages, 4%, 1.182. And then VOTEC, which is our kids that get sent out for trade and occupational training, is going up 18%, $189,000. So those are our biggest cost drivers right there. You can see utilities, for the first time in a while, we're going up because we've been stable there. But as you've probably seen in your residential, the delivery and supply rates are going up. We're projected 25% increase on delivery next year. Our rates are locked in, but we don't control delivery. And that's what they're projecting our increase to be. Special ed, I'm sorry, so if you go back to special ed. Special ed stabilizes. Last year it went up, you'll see, I think it was 14% or something, maybe more. But 77,000 shows that we stabilized that cost escalation. And transportation, again, is just salaries and some contractual increases. But overall, the big increase, again, is salary and benefits. Health insurance, you can see during the COVID years, very nominal increases, 2%, 3.8%. And then it started to climb in 23, 24 as we came out of COVID. And then last year, you can see the big increase in this year. It came down a little bit, but again, we're thinking this is the new norm. We are in a consortium with 28 school districts, about $300 million of collaborative premium in that consortium. We're only about 5% of it, so we'd probably be facing a 20, 22% increase if we were on our own and not in a consortium. This is where our plans live. Highmark and CDPHP are active employees like the CDPHP. That rate increase next year is 9.8%. Our retirees, like our Highmark plans, they're going up 19% next year. Because it's almost a 50-50, that's why you see that 11%. You can see the change that we've all seen in health insurance, that 17-18 to present day, you're going from almost $41,000 for a family plan under the Highmark PPO, where it was $20,000 in 2017-18. It's just really escalated, and it's a national as well as a statewide problem. Special ed, out-of-district placements, you can see the big increase of 27% last year on our budget, and this year it's only less than 3%. So it's stabilized between the placements, which is good for the budget. And there's our placements up to the left. 35 go to BOCES programs, 8 to private schools. Potential restructuring that are in the first draft, just to show you the cost impact. I presented this at the last fiscal projection. We have 2 senior maintenance mechanics retiring at the end of February. I had reorganized in 2015 to eliminate the director of facilities position and provide these 2 maintenance mechanics with supervisory responsibilities. It saved the district about $1.1 million. So I'm asking for the board's direction going forward, but right now, that's what's the change in the budget. The director of facilities coming in, and the 2 maintenance mechanics not being supervisory anymore. It'd be a $177,000 increase to the budget. And then potential restructuring of PPS. Basically, we have to replace the PPS director. Anthony Piccone took it on for this year interim. He'll slide back to his role, And then we brought back a CPSE, CSE chairperson that was eliminated from the budget in 25-26, so that has to be addressed. That's the impact of all that. If $151,000 increase to the budget. Retirements, 10 teacher retirements. You can see what I displayed here is the breakage isn't what it used to be because of the escalation of health insurance, because we carry retirement health insurance. So you can see the salary differential is significant, $409,000, but it's mitigated by the retirees moving on to the retiree health insurance and then backfilling them with people taking health insurance in their positions. So it's $110,709 on the breakage or the savings to the budget on 10 retirements. And that's just a pro forma on what that preceding slide, we assume we're going to replace at step 8, and that's the teaching assistant cost next to it. You can see the cost of benefits is basically what it's more than what a teaching assistant makes now on their wages. Property tax limit, these are the slides that we typically show, which takes you through the formula. I think it's an 8-step formula. This year, the inflation rate was 2.63%. So the formula starts out, it's the lesser of the inflation, consumer price index, or the 2%. So we immediately default to 2% to start the process. And there's certain exemptions throughout the formula. Your pilots are involved in this, your capital exclusion, which is the debt less the building aid. They all go into these calculations, and you arrive at a tax levy increase. And you'll see the next slide, I think it's 2.22%. Yes. So we're at 2.22%. That's the maximum allowable tax levy increase to be at a 50% voter approval. Last year it was 3.25%. So that allows us to raise taxes by $766,874. So that would create basically a $2.7,444,785 tax cap gap. These are just historical. You can see the tax cap on the left, what the state said we could have as a cap based on the formula, to what we basically went out with. And then the tax rate corresponding to it. Tax rates usually less than the tax levy because of assessed value growth. And you can see the spending increase, how it correlates to our tax rate, to our tax levy. And on average, we've been at 2.77 tax cap allowable, 2.16 tax levy increase, and a 1.33% tax rate increase. Spending is about 2.5%. So the district's been very fiscal, responsible, and conservative over the tax cap years. You can see 26-27, the first draft looks like a 2.22% tax cap, 10.18% tax levy increase to balance the budget. The tax rate and the tax cap are about the same. We don't have new assessed values yet. And the spending increase is 4.9%. So it's just the first look at everything. History is we've been at or under the cap 12 times. We went over the cap once in 15 when the cap was only 0.8%. And then last year we went over the cap, was defeated, but the second vote was approved. So we were under the cap at the end. And then March 1, we give the state a preliminary direction of the board if we're going to go out or over the tax cap. It's not binding until the board adopts a budget. The state likes to have that number. Impact on taxpayers, $160,000 or $200,000 home. Before STAR, you can see that $405 for the $160,000 home and $507 for a $200,000 home if we went out with a 10%. So that's significant. Other propositions for the board to consider is the bus replacement. We're recommending one 57-passenger bus with a wheelchair capacity. The cost would be $214,000. We would borrow the money, pay it back over 5 years. We would get state aid on that. I think it would be $14,000 increase to the budget in 27-28. And by that time, we'd have another bus falling off the debt service. We didn't go out for a bus last year. We went out with the electric buses, which are still not hit the assembly line, but I'll hit that in another slide. So one bus. So one bus for the one prop for the bus, 214. We'd like the board to consider the infrastructure for the bus garage vehicle. 2 years ago it was $2.6 million. I'll have the architects present to you probably end of February with an updated, because the costs probably have gone up. We still anticipate with incentives and our repair reserve, NYSERDA money, that we're going to cover this at no additional cost to the taxpayers. This is Susan's. You want to go over your strategy?
So before the board asks Drew's questions, any questions you may have, this is the way we're going to approach budget. You will notice that I'm not going to come to you and ask you for your negotiables and non-negotiables. You have looked at our fiscal forecast. You know we've been anticipating what was coming this year. So I think when we talk about what's you're faced with, you're going to have to make a decision between coming in at the cap or under, or going out over the cap. And what we can preserve will depend on what those decisions are. Questions for Drew?
I got one for you, Drew.
Sure.
I know a couple months ago you had mentioned that we could possibly roll out the EV proposal separate from the budget. I couldn't remember the timeline. Has that ship already sailed? It feels like it was this month, I think you had said.
Yes, good memory, Chad. We could have done a late fall, early spring or whatever, but I thought because the costs have probably changed because it's been a while, I wanted to regroup and get the board a new updated proposal of what it's going to cost to retrofit the bus garage. So we just got our electrification plan. It's at NYSERDA. That's where we get all the incentives approved. That's in the final review now. So I wanted to wait till that got done also. Hopefully that answers your question. But I think it's better to wait either to May and do it as a separate proposition here, because you'll have the most updated figures with what it's going to cost to bring the transformer in and the charging stations and so forth.
Okay. Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome.
Back to closing a school, originally you had discussed it would be approximately $1 million, and I think recently it's increased to 1.5. Can you explain where that change came in?
I always kind of said when I shown the 2.9 million of direct cost that I hope we could get maybe 2 million out of it. Susan was alluding to the certified, which is certified personnel, about $1 million. So when you take the $1 million from the certified personnel with the non-instructional and utilities and so forth, we can get about to $1.5 million. That's just through months of going through all this stuff, finally getting a seniority list and who's going to bump whom. And as John showed tonight and Rick, that number stays no matter what school we go with, pretty close. So.
And going back to the fence, if it's determined that a fence needs to be built, you had said previously it's coming out of a line, $100,000 line, and we should be paid back the 74%. Had there been any other thoughts you had about using that line prior to the fence issue that we'd be foregoing by doing a fence?
Usually have those discussions with my facility people, what they're thinking we need to get at, but right now, this would be the best way to do it if we want to, use that money. There's nothing of priority that would, say we shouldn't do the fence.
I just wasn't sure if we were pushing something else aside that needed to be done as well.
No, we've done the auditorium flooring this past year, middle school auditorium, got new carpeting and so forth with that money. Prior year it was the door sensors that allowed our doors, if they're ajar, it goes through the door alarm system. So we do that, that's all done. So this would be something that fortuitously falls at a good time to use that money.
Okay. And my last question, because I noticed you were talking about the EV buses. It sounds like they're actually going to start production on our buses next month.
Yep, and hopefully maybe have them by the fall. It's been really, they haven't even put them on the line yet. Now they're going to finally start production on them. And the voters approved this over a year ago.
Right, it seems like it was almost 2 years ago now.
Is it?
But I guess my question is, there's been a lot of issues in the news about buses with MTA, recently testifying about the problems they're having with their EV buses. Other school districts in other states like Vermont and Maine have been having a lot of problems with their EV buses. And I know it's something that's been voted on, and I get that. I just didn't know if there was any discussion about, I'm assuming this is a contract that's already been signed and ready to go. And,
and it's three, so it's not going to be the mainstay of our fleet. It's a good way to get our feet in the water and see how this goes. But yeah, there are problems. A lot of districts are having problems with these. Be interesting to see what happens after the election with the EV mandates.
Yes, thank you.
I had a question on the EV buses also. So we already have EV buses coming, so no matter what, we are going to need the infrastructure to be able to charge those buses. Is this the last chance we have to be able to get the rebates, or will those continue on year to year?
It's a good question. With the federal uncertainty, they pull away the money, there's no money for the state, because that money comes from the feds for this. And so it's a really good question. Right now, we can get those three buses in, and we can get we can charge them with a couple of charging stations. We have the ability for that, not much more. So the window on this, it's an interesting question, because it seems to be closing. The whole grid, right now, we're seeing on electrical bills residentially, they're having trouble getting the electrical grid to supply enough electricity to everybody. And so where's it going to come for these electric buses when they go, fully in 2035? A lot of questions to be answered at the state level on this. I see them pulling back. We're going to apply for a waiver so that we can not have to purchase new buses in 2027. They have to be EV at that point, no diesel. We're going to get the waiver on that to push that out a little bit. But it's an interesting question. I think we've got the money set aside, the incentives. We think we'll know we're going to get those with this electrification proposal. That gets approved, we get all the incentives from the state. And right now we have to do it. She's saying 35, you have to be fully electric. So we get this project approved by the voters, it'll be 1 to 2 years before it gets through the state, before we start construction on it. So
I do think it's an interesting question, because there's mandates. However, it's mandates dealing with votes of the population. If the population votes against it, as a district, we can't then say, too bad, we're doing it anyways. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future if those types of things continue to happen where the public doesn't vote for it.
Agree. And they have been voted down in other places. Central New York's voted them down. They do. We would have an arrangement where we could use theirs in an emergency. We'd pay for it, but we're working that out too. Not the full fleet, but our 3 buses. So. Yep.
Drew, you had said that we applied for a waiver and that's pushed us out. Where are we sitting now?
We're in the process of preparing the waiver right now,
Okay.
Chad. I'll let you know as soon as done and it's accepted, but we're in the process of putting it together.
Would that give us any idea if that's like a year, 2 years maybe, or just you gotta wait and see?
Gotta wait and see.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are those waivers automatic? You apply and you get it, or do you have to show just cause for why you need the waiver?
Just cause.
Would we use the vote from last year as a reason?
Use that and infrastructure improvements, the proposition, the construction, yes. Yep. We put out a proposal to see if anybody wanted to take it away, and no one responded. So now we're good with the state to, if we have a proposition approved, to proceed with demolition.
All right, and a couple questions on this, the carry forward budget. I see increase in the pilot revenue. Do you know where that's coming from, or?
Last year, we had a couple pilots come in after the budget, so that's where it's just a couple new pilots. That's what it is.
And then, as you remember, committee may notice, there's a couple of housing structure being put up, housing developments. Are we expecting pilots probably from that, or is more on the tax roll?
Those will go on the tax rolls because it's residential.
Okay.
Typically, pilots are for commercials.
Okay.
So, and we get near March, I'll talk to the assessor and I'll twist his arm and get what he's looking at. But the assessed values are not finalized till after Memorial Day. But usually I can get a good look at what we're looking at as far as growth. That's why you see that I can give you a tax rate different than the tax levy as we move through the budget.
And no issues from last year with Walmart and Lowe's for them?
They haven't settled yet.
They haven't settled, okay. And also, the carry forward budget, it says home and community. Can you explain?
That's the GIVE program, that our kids do things for the community.
Okay.
So,
I think that's it for me. Oh, wait, sorry, athletics.
yes.
That's just an increase in uniforms and,
Three sports get the uniforms that were in poor condition upgraded, and all these sports get proper supply and reconditioning set up in their sports. So this year we had to catch up on some things like the lacrosse helmets and things like that. And to Marcy's credit, she came very prepared for the budget meeting. So I put it in the first draft for you to look at it. But it gets everything up to speed. Every sport should be properly funded, and the uniform should be all up to speed.
no, agreed. Anything on, with athletics, anything in the high school building? Oh, not the high school, sorry, all the gymnasiums, any upgrades there, or just mostly?
We do the floors every year. We wax them and things like that.
Part of this one, this increase.
In
is-
athletics, no.
No.
It's all done in building and grounds budget.
Okay,
Yep.
understood. Thank you.
Sorry. You're welcome.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Okay, any questions, just send them to Susan. I'll answer them during the week.
Go to the floor, we have 30 minutes, and you would like to address the board, just please state your name and your address, please.
Hi, I'm Karen Bradley, 204 Wren Street in Scotia. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Rick and John for the incredible amount of work I know that has gone into gathering the information that many of us have been asking for and reasoning. I know that wasn't easy for them to pull that together, and it was an honor for me to serve on the committee with them, so I knew we had this capability amongst our staff to do that and look at the data. And I know it's not an easy decision, but I really appreciate all of the effort that has been taken, not just by the two of them, but I'm sure there's many other of the administrative team that have been involved in this. And then, of course, the board, the decision. I appreciated the opportunity. I did attend Susan's community coffee a Saturday ago, and one of the things some of the people are here tonight that attended that, that we did ask for, that, when the decision is made, that there be an immediate outreach to the families, the children, and the staff that are going to be impacted. And so seeing that up there on the screen, a lot of information was provided, and I feel much more reassured, and being able to, you looked at it and you could see names and neighborhoods and people and all this. We didn't know anything because we just never heard anything. So I just want to thank you very much, particularly Rick and John, for the effort that went into that. I do hope that when we move forward that they're going to have a big hand in being able to ensure that our children are served, and our families and our staff. So I just appreciate it.
My name's Amy Marlette, 506 Mohawk Avenue. Hey, thanks for the plan. Appreciate it. Thanks. Hi, Heather McCord. I'm from Cherokee Road and a Glen Warden parent. I had a lot of remarks prepared that aren't necessary right now, but I think I wanted to speak a little bit about process. We did reimagining our schools. It's been 10 weeks since our last large group meeting, 12 weeks since committees met. Rick and John did an excellent job providing you guys, finally, after all of this time, with the information you've been requesting. I've seen bits and pieces of that through my committee, and I'm sure other committee members have seen it in their committees. And my concern about process is, why didn't the board have this information all along? We have 19 weeks until the last week of school. 19 weeks. It's been 10 weeks since the last large group meeting, so that's another third of the time that we could have spent planning for the closure. I'm now hearing this information presented clearly and concisely. It's a very convincing argument to close my kid's school. I've never had a problem with you closing my kid's school, but I've had a problem with there not being a plan. And I appreciate that we got as far as deciding which school to close. But this information was pretty readily available, and it wasn't provided to us as the community and to you as the board. And I don't know why that is. Why are we being so paternalistic? Why are we being protected from the facts about our own children's education here in Scotia? It's okay to close a school. It's okay to make these hard decisions, but what's not okay is to not let the school board listen to the information and represent us as we work with the administration to educate our students here. You've got 19 weeks to the last week of school. You have got to tell my second grader, who's home tonight not eating birthday cake with mom because I'm here at this meeting, you have to have a plan to tell her who her teacher's going to be, what building she's going to go to, which friends are going to be in her class. There has to be a plan beyond just which school to close. You've got 19 weeks till the end of school, but that's not the deadline. The deadline's much sooner than that. It took this long to get a seniority list together. I'm certain it didn't. I could have gone through your old board meeting minutes, seen when people were appointed, and figured it out myself. So I really want to talk about that process. How did we get here? How did we waste almost an entire school year? 10 weeks since the last meeting, 20 weeks since the start of school. Where has this information been? Why hasn't it been provided to us? Why hasn't it been provided to you, the board, when you've asked and asked and asked? And I think that's a really important thing to think about as you go forward and as you plan for our kids in the future. I, again, really appreciate the presentation tonight. Rick, John, you did an awesome job putting that in a very digestible format. I think everybody here would agree that what you gave to us allows us to move forward and feel okay with the decision making. Now we need equal confidence in your decision making about what you're going to do with our kids. So please do what you need to do to make this a responsible, respectful, supportive plan for all of our students. And please write great letters of recommendation for those poor Glen Warden teachers, because they've done an excellent job with our students over there. We are proud parents of our Glen Warden teachers, and we would support them. Again, wherever they land, they're going to do great because they've got a tartan background, and we all know that that's something that they can take with them. So thank you, but think about the process.
Tom Decker. Both you gentlemen put on a very good display. I'm very proud of both of you that you gave answers that we needed. I'm very disappointed as in the superintendents, the board, couldn't come up with the answers that everybody wanted. That was very uncalled for, first of all. You should have had them ready when we needed the answers, not rely on two gentlemen to come up just like that. It's pathetic. You guys have one job to do, and your job is to make sure that these schools go flowly, nicely. You guys failed us on there. Took these two guys less than 2 weeks to come up with these numbers, and they did it. You guys should be ashamed as a board to have it go this far. That was very uncalled for. I have a few questions. Maybe somebody can say yes or no right now to me. You got 90 kids that are in different districts from their houses. Are they going to be moved back to their school districts, to the schools that they should be going to? Can somebody answer me that? They are going to be moved over, so the other kids have a chance to go into closer to their school. Thank you. And I highly appreciate that on your part. Second thing is, are we going to have counseling at these schools for these kids? Because these kids, they're little. You know, they're going to cry. They're going to want to know who their friends are. Are we going to have the counseling there available for our kids? Yes or no? Thank you. Third thing is, we already know pretty much that you guys are going to vote Glen Warden down, close us down. That's almost a no-brainer. Am I behind that? Not really, because obviously you see what I'm wearing. I'm big on them. I did a lot of fundraisers with them. I made my grandson number 2 on fundraising in that school. I walked the streets and got money for fundraising, and I taught him the way of doing it. So my question here is, when you decide to close Glen Warden, which you're most likely going to, and you shove my grandson, who I'm raising, to another school, are we going to not wait until September, but sometime in the summer, maybe July, get staff together in these schools that they're going to, the kids are going to, and have the parents meet the teachers, have the parents meet the principals? Yes. We are going to have it. We're not going to wait until the end of August, right? Okay, I'm holding you to that. Thank you. See how this is going? Very simple, very easily. Answers are coming out now. And it all started from these two gentlemen here, giving us our numbers. This is what we should have been doing as a community, working together, not against each other. This isn't about closing a school. We know what's going to happen. It's not going to be closing Lincoln or closing everybody else. But it's work as a group now and what's best for the kids. I've said it before. It's all about the kids. No more Lincoln, no more Glen Warden. This is all as one. Keep it going. We have something going right now. These two gentlemen had started it. Don't fall back onto it. And one more thing. What's going on with the parking situation? We do have drop-offs at Lincoln School. Are you going to have something magically appear that you can bring all these buses in, that you can bring all the drop-offs? Because you're going to have traffic all the way back out to 147 by the high school, whatever that road is. How are you going to be able to control the traffic there? Can anybody answer that? Because you're going to have people possibly getting hit. Okay. I'm just looking out for the safety of the kids, everybody here.
We have different zones throughout, located next to the classrooms. So it's very efficient. Every summer, we send a letter home with a map, aerial map of where you're picking up your child, where you're dropping off your child.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that. I just want to know how this is going to flow. I'm going to leave this last statement from me. I want you guys to remember one number. The number is 1. 1. You better have that fence up at Glendale if you shut us down for these DS 1 and 2 and 3 kids. All it's going to take is one kid to elope and barrel out of that school to the highway. It's going to take one accident. And that accident, killing or hurting a student, is going to take one major lawsuit. You better have that fence up. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No excuses. You got the money. We at Glen Warden had to come up with the money, being fundraise everything. You guys have the money magically now. Just remember the number is 1. one runner, one accident, one lawsuit. Keep that back of your head. Thank you.
Danielle Murray Hiba, Glenville resident. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of where Mr. Decker ended. As you guys mostly know, I am a parent to a DS1 child. My understanding is they will be going to Glendale. Along with other parents, we do have some questions, and I know it sounds to some people minute about this fence, but my son is fast. Like, could be track star. It will take him maybe 45 seconds to get from one end of the field to that road. Do you need the parents, first of all, to contact any of the DOTs? Because there is no school zone. We would be more than happy to petition for a school zone and help this, because none of the parents want our kids there if there's not a school zone in place. Those people speed, I'm sure you know. Not me though. I think the speed limit is what, 45 on, if you're actually following that. It's a country road, let's face it. Most people are doing 55 plus. With this fence, will the parents get, like, we keep talking about a number, but no map or area. Are they gonna have full use of the grounds? Like during field day at Glen Warden, it sits back off a main road, way far back. So they can actually participate fully with gen ed kids at field day. Is this fence all encompassing? I doubt it for 60,000. So what happens during field day? Are they not going to be included in all the activities? I mean, I got quotes for a fence. I can tell you it wasn't anything fancy, and I know it's going to be a lot more than $60,000 to include the field that they use for field day. Because I will tell you right now, it will take 45 seconds to get from one end of that field to the other for the kid. And he won't stop unless you tackle him. All little 40 pounds of him, but he's fast. So I'm just asking you guys, whatever the decision is with Glen Warden, we're already prepared for that. But to please be transparent with everybody and really look at that map, make sure you're including these kids in everything that they can do at that school. And if you need our parents, we are more than willing, and I'm sure this goes for Glendale parents and Glen Warden parents, that should have always been a school zone. It doesn't take just a gen ed kid or a DS kid to run. Anyone could get hurt. I think there was a car that went into Glendale a couple years ago. Thank God, I don't think anyone who was at school, by the grace of God, that happened. It doesn't take much, and maybe we can all work together with the police, the DOTs, because it's a state road. We've already contacted assemblymen and senators about it. So we're on our side about getting that done. No matter what school they go to, that needs to be a priority too. So if you need something, you clearly know how to get a hold of me, and we are more than willing to help. Thank you. Oh, and thank you, Mr. Giannetti and Mr. Arquette.
Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm just really confused sitting here right now after all these presentations and everything. Yes, thank you so much. Those were the answers we wanted the whole time. But like, this all became because we were supposed to choose the school that was financially costing us the most money. We had those numbers up there, and that wasn't the suggested school. Now it's going to changing now to what school. It's ever evolving. It's just going to keep going like that until they just choose Glen Warden. So why don't we just end it tonight? It's just going to keep evolving. What is it about now? You're copy and pasting Glen Warden School at another school. It's just going to forever keep changing. Why the school? Now it's for staff and for changing kids. I thought the whole point of it was for the money. So what does it matter now? If we're saving $1.5 million and it's just pocket change for the school, This is just like so misleading. I'm just sitting here and trying to like gather up, okay, trying to reason with myself, and it's just like I don't even know what this is about anyways. So if it's about the real estate, whatever. I just want my kids to have a plan. Can we do that?
All right, if there's nobody else who wishes to address the board, we'll close the first hearing and privilege of the floor. Remind everybody that we will have one towards the end of the meeting. Moving on to reports and updates. Kim Furnish, Legislative.
I already said my piece about the EV buses with the other, so I'm good. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Chad, PTA Council.
Yeah, so tomorrow evening, Glen Warden will have their monthly PTA meeting at 6 p.m. in the LMC. On the 11th, PTA Council will be meeting over at Glendale, 6 p.m. in the LMC. Same day, PTSA are meeting at 6 p.m. room B2, right? That always throws me off. I don't know why. And then on the 12th, Lincoln will have their monthly PTA meeting, 6 p.m. in the LMC. On the 13th, Glen Warden will have their glow party at 6 p.m. And same night, Lincoln will have their Valentine's glow party at 6 p.m. as well. Probably everyone has seen now on social media, but Founders Day is now taking tickets. It's going to be all digital. If we somehow have a personnel who cannot make digital payment, get with your Founders Day rep and they can take care of you. This year it's going to be at Settles Hill Banquets and Events in Altamont. They'll be on sale through March 1st. And that's what we got for PTA business.
Audit Committee, nothing right now. Board of Education Policy Committee. Mike, Chad, Pam.
Susan, if we could get together after the break and talk about the board docs or whatever new name it was, that'd be fantastic.
Sure.
I'll bring coffee.
I think we're pending if we were getting BOCES aid on that.
We will next year.
Thank you, Susan.
Michael. How you doing over there? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm still hanging in there. You actually took quite a few of the things I had written down for tonight earlier in the meeting, but there was one athletic accomplishment that we didn't talk about, and that was 2 varsity track and field athletes, one from the boys team and one from the girls team, who got new district records in throwing. And I thought that was definitely worth mentioning. I don't have too many details on what's next. The High School Student Senate is putting together their Valentine's Day fundraiser. I wish I could say a little bit more about that, but I can't. I apologize. And the Elevating Student Voices and Empowering Cultural Inclusion, student-run groups in the high school, have been putting together a creative expression contest, is what they're calling it. And it's about the legacy of John F. Kennedy. And initially, I was not going to include this tonight, but that was until multiple students came to me and told me how much they were excited to be able to represent themselves with their artwork, their writing, in a way that they don't usually see during school day. So I thought that was a little motivating, and I figured I should include that as well.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you. Board of Education goals.
Yeah, I stated at the last meeting, I was going to get an email thread going to us at communications, obviously other topics took precedent on that. I have a couple ideas and a couple mock-ups for graphics, so I'm hoping next week I can put that out to everybody and take a look, start getting feedback, at least on the communications end, what y'all think about it.
Good. All right. Can I get a motion and a second, please, to approve the superintendent's recommendation to close or repurpose Glen Warden Elementary?
I'll motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation to close or repurpose Glen Warden Elementary.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Questions, further discussion? Okay. All right, if not, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Nay.
And abstain? So it's 5-2. So moved.
Al?
Yes.
Could I say something, please?
Please, yes.
Now that we've opened Pandora's box.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I hear from our community is a plan,
Mm-hmm.
a timeline. I know it's incredibly hard with a lot of the logistics, but Susan, could we set an expectation for the community to start seeing these timelines and plans to come out? We've heard some stuff already regarding the fence with Drew's, but when can we start hearing that? I think that'll ease a lot of anxieties as we move forward.
We will have the structure of the initial plan for you on the 23rd.
Great, thank you.
Great, good question, Chad, thank you. All right, moving on. If I could get a motion, please, and a second. We can do resolutions 10 and 11 if we choose to.
I'll move to accept a donation to be applied to the Glenn Stupera Memorial Scholarship in the amount of $1,000 from the Tartan Youth Basketball Club, and to accept and appropriate the gift and donation from Darlene Starmore, donation of a Jupiter brand piccolo, valued at approximately $850 to the Scotia-Glenville Central School District music program.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments on that besides thank you? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? So moved. I have a motion and second, please, to request to establish the student club, crochet club at the middle school. Excuse me.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to establish a student club at the Scotia-Glenville Middle School Crochet Club.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't crochet and I'd love to learn how.
Ask Ms. Myers, she might let you in on it.
Are you getting into the class?
I mean, she wants somebody with two left thumbs.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? So moved. If I can get a motion and a second, please, to review and adopt the 26-27 school calendar.
I'll make a motion to review and adopt 26-27 school calendar as submitted.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Chad. Questions or comments on the school calendar?
There has been concern with parents, and it's happened previous years as well, about the 4 or 5 half days that we have, especially for the elementary students and parents worrying with work. Could you explain the reason why we do these half days versus maybe 2 full days, or some alternative to try to help parents at work?
Rick has probably talked about this with PDC as well as not recently. And certainly I talk about it with PAC, the Professional Advisory Council, who sees and approves the calendar before we bring it to you. Teachers feel this is the best way to make conference times available to the largest number of people is by spreading them out. So although we've talked about trying to do it in 2 days, that hasn't been the general consensus coming from staff, but that's actually workable.
They want more options, essentially, for parents to be able to choose from?
Yes.
Is that the? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. If nothing else, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? So moved. I have motion in communications.
I think it's just for me.
Great, go ahead.
I'll move communications A through D. Can you see them?
Yeah.
I'll move 15A, tenure, staffing B 1 through 7, and placement of children with disabilities.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
I had a question on the B5. I know they're volunteers, but are they getting, so I think I asked this before, maybe I'm not recalling for some reason now. Do they go through the same standards of, once they're applying? Has it had the same training?
I can't respond about training, but yes, we expect them to be fingerprinted and the kinds of things we expect all coaches.
So same as a regular varsity head coach or?
But they might potentially not be a certified coach. They might actually be an extra pair of hands who's working.
Okay. But still get the, okay, thank you.
I'll double check that with
Thank you.
Marcy.
If nothing else, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved.
Congratulations to our newly tenured staff member.
Absolutely. Thank you. Budget transfers. Any questions? Budget transfer January 2026. All right, so moved. Other business. Who has any other business?
I did hear that Teen Town was a hit on Friday night. There was lots of students, and they were very excited about it. I saw a lot of them at Stewart's afterwards, and so we didn't get to have a Teen Town, so thank you to all the volunteers who volunteered to allow Teen Town this year. Well, this month, I should say.
Thank you. Any other business?
I would say the boys modified team today, Coach Rick Arquette here, 7th grade, 8th grade. They play the high school gym, usually play in the middle school, but had the facility available, so nice way to showcase the boys in high school turf. And it was a packed house. I was so amazed that I couldn't find a seat. Unless I was hiding maybe, I don't know. But it was a packed house. I was so, I don't want to say mesmerized is a good word. That all the Scotia parents are out there rooting for these boys. The next, I guess it's a generation of JV and varsity, players. Again, kudos to Coach Arquette. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's a very good group of teammates right there.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Bridget. Anything else? All right. At this time, we'll open the second hearing privilege of the floor. Remind everybody that it's 30 minutes. If you'd like to address the board, please just tell us your name and address and adhere to our 5-minute policy, please.
I just want to piggyback. It's Karen again. Piggyback on what Chad said, of where we go now from here, and that you do think hard about reaching out to the RoS committee that has put in a tremendous amount. Some may not, after this process, want to continue on, and I respect that, but some of us really do want to continue on, and I do think from what we saw tonight, there's a lot of impact across 4 buildings of a shift of people and possibly principals. So I do think the transition group, that's something I would like to be a part of. I feel like grade level, Rick, I think we're done, grade level. But to move forward, I think the sooner we can wrap people in to make a positive difference and become one, I think the better it's going to be for everyone. I think it's good. We have a break coming up soon for kids, families, teachers. But when we come back, just like all hands on deck to really do the best that we can. So I know some don't want to continue, but be willing even to accept other people in, to do the best for everyone. So that's my last word.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
I have to start over again? Oh, man. Oh, again, my name's Mark Ron, Scotia. outsider looking into the windows. Is this dying again? No, it's me. Again, I repeat, I was not overly impressed from what I saw. I'd like to see more professionalism on the part of the administration, more transparency, better preparation. The board ought to be more proactive. I'll remind you again, the parents that are in front of you, you are going to be dealing with them for years to come. Their kids aren't going to be graduating in the next year or two. So you better be prepared to face them again and do it professionally. Be prepared with the information they request. I applaud a core group of parents that took the time and the effort to participate in this process. There will be tears shed. There would be tears shed regardless. But I applaud those people. I hope you have not discouraged them. You borderline discredited yourselves. Again, I call your attention to the 3 banners that I called to your attention to the first time I attended a meeting. That applies to all of us, not just what you're looking for and expecting of your students. So every time you step into the room, every time you face these people, let those banners remind you of what you're supposed to do. I would like to take to task the parents that aren't here. Apparently they don't care. Apparently they have more important things to do. So I'm going to call them out right in front of everybody. They don't care about their kids. They don't care about the future of the school. So it's on them. A small core group came out and did everything they could possibly do as parents. And I applaud them. School board, your job isn't easy. I don't envy you, especially in this day and age. This is not going to get easier. You're going to have to come before these people in the future, and you're going to have to tell them some very hard facts of life. Because you have to remember, there are things that are being taken away, and you know that once things are taken away, what are the odds of getting them back? So if you think it's tough now, it's going to be tougher in the future. Keep that in mind. Another question, as far as if we're going to repurpose Glen School, is there any possibility that you would be able to transfer administrative offices over to that school? Is there enough square footage to transfer administrative offices? I had to drive down a back alley to a Quonset hunt in the 21st century in order to accept an invitation to meet with Drew, which he graciously extended to me. I told Drew and his assistant, I look at everything. One of the things I was looking at was the floor plan for that Quonset hut. It's right out there in the lobby. And in private sector, I don't know what it's like in education sector. Private sector, top person, whoever's in that office, usually has the luxury and the privilege of their own private bathroom. I didn't see that on the floor plan for that Quonset hut in the 21st century. Is that possible at Glen Warden? So I think it would be beholden to the administration to move them into nicer quarters. More, you know, if you're going outside the district to bring in partners on these plans for the future, show them something nice. I'm not looking for ostentatious. Something respectable. Is that possible? Another thing too, choice of venue as far as where to hold these meetings. You notice, I bring my own chair. Comfort is everything. We aren't grade schoolers. Environmental issues, environmental factors can control a crowd. So I'd like to see a more comfortable accommodations, if possible. If not, have a good reason for why you can't furnish them. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck in the future.
I'm not here to question anything about what was said. I'm just making you guys aware. I know a lot of you don't know about it, and I know it doesn't get mentioned a lot on the school websites, but we have a tremendous wrestling season this year that I think you guys should all be aware of, is our wrestling team. Am I allowed to mention their names, or if it's not negative? We have a senior, Luke.
And ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? So moved. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.